So we're going to get a little heavier now, my friends. Converge and Chelsea Wolfe with their album Blood Moon 1. This is the 10th studio album from the influential Massachusetts metalcore band. It's been 4 years since their critically acclaimed record, The Dusk in Us. I was introduced to Converge by other hardcore music fans in my neighborhood in the late 90s. And I never became a fan, but I respect the uniqueness of their style. And I believe I gave the last album a good rating. But I was too lazy to go back and confirm that. So I'm just going to assume I thought it was okay. But with all the accolades the previous album received, I'm pretty sure like the pressure was on for them to like follow it up with like a fantastic album. So this time around, they are collaborating with goth rock singer guitarist Chelsea Wolfe, who's been in the game since 2010 and has 6 studio albums under her belt. Have you heard Chelsea Wolfe before?
She might have been featured on something that I listened to a few years back, but I haven't listened to her regular music.
So this mashup that they're doing originally started in 2016 when Converge and Chelsea and members of other metal bands did a 4-date tour in Europe under the name Blood Moon. And they performed ambient post-rock versions of Converge's slower and less heard tracks to a much high praise. And even more surprisingly, this is not the first collaboratory album that Converge has done, because their 7th album, which was called Axe to Fall, featured members of Cave In, The Hope Conspiracy, Genghis Tron, Neurosis, and The Sphere. I've heard of none of those groups. I've heard of nothing that Chelsea Wolfe has done before. So far, we know that both me and Tyler have never heard a Chelsea Wolfe song that we could actually like name if a gun was to our head.
Yeah.
How about Converge then?
No.
I like how you thought about it for a second.
Yeah, I'm like loading,
just say
loading. No response.
So combining harsh, sometimes thrashy metalcore with folky goth rock, as well as mixing like Jacob Bannon's shouting vocals with someone who had like more of a soprano singing style, I think seems like a recipe for like incompatibility. But god damn it, does this slap. I was like looking at certain songs. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of bummed that like these songs are over like 6 minutes long or over 7 minutes long, but they definitely give a reason for the length. Where'd you feel towards the album?
I thought it was actually a very good mix of like that harsher tone coming from the frontman of Converge and Chelsea. Like you said, like they harmonized on that 3rd track, and it's like, holy shit, you might have something here.
Yeah, and getting into the opening track, which was the title track, they kind of have that quiet, creepy piano arrangement, and it has like Jacob using like altered goth-like vocals, and it's like the song is so good, and he's actually doing clean vocals. I was blown away because I'm like, I didn't know he can sing like that, and he sounds amazing. Because I just assumed like he screams all the time, like even when he's like just talking. There's at 6 o'clock. Make me pick up my drink. Yeah, good morning, children. I made breakfast. He's like singing like, you know, really like sultry, and like it just sounds really good. And Chelsea comes in for the 2nd verse, and she sounds well at home with like the style of music that they're doing. And as the doom metal guitarists like come in, both Jacob and Chelsea compliment each other at the same time. Then it gets like heavier in the chorus, and Jacob goes back to like this yelling that he does when he's like, blood moon ascending in the night, cosmic unblinking eye. The sinister like synth keys are also great touch to that song. I would say like there's some points of that chorus that were a little repetitive. Maybe they could cut it down. But the next track, which is called Viscera of Men, starts as a fast, like aggressive hardcore punk tune that kind of like what Converge sounds like. But then it switches to slower, like sludge-core. I don't know if they call it that, just as quickly as it came in. Chelsea's backing vocals add an extra like haunting layer to the chorus. But when it switches to that eerie like acoustic guitar rhythm, and they're both commonly like singing that bleed into the silence, cast into the void, like that plinking, like, you know, guitar they're doing, that part is still maintains that element of like evilness. Converge has always been considered like very progressive with their metalcore style, but still I'm fucking shocked at how they pushed themselves even further on this album. And instead of like making like a metalcore album with random moments of the like black metal or goth kind of put in here and there, they acclimated that sound into this like hybrid of like doom metal genre that they're pulling off.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to spoil the album for people and like describe all 11 tracks. What I will do is I'll sum up a bit and I'll also mention my favorite songs. Go ahead.
I thought Coil, it was slow and menacing, especially that harmonization with Chelsea and the front man. It was just, you didn't think the two opposites could like harmonize like that. Amazing.
I definitely hear like the Black Sabbath like influence when they're doing that doom metal.
I can see it.
Maybe even Faith No More or like that side project, Mr. Bunghole, like all that stuff. But I also hear like that theatrical sound, maybe that what like Dream Theater does.
Yeah. It's a slow burn, but it's well worth it. Tongues Playing Dead. It's another thing I couldn't really figure out with some of these songs. Like none of these like have like a story, and I had to like remind myself, okay, there's not really a story being told here. You just gotta like just kind of listen and just interpret how you think.
Yeah.
That being said, I did like Flower Moon because I like the idea of like this crazy guy who's obsessed with moonlight and like presenting it as like this entity almost that can't escape anything. It's slow and foreboding, about the flowering of the full moon. Also, like the moon is beautiful like a flower.
Yeah, it's blooming.
Yes. Tongues Playing Dead, like what a badass opening that was.
That sounds like more like classic Converge, I thought. It's very brutal mass metal riffs they're doing. He's shouting like he always does, but it's got like this kind of like dirty southern rock vibe to it.
Let's see. Scorpion Sting. A slow start with Chelsea's soft lyrics. Maybe a song about a toxic love built on seduction, kind of like how I think a scorpion lures in its prey. It has almost like a desert rock vibe that I can't really shake.
Yeah. I didn't want to say like the Queens of the Stone Age, but I definitely heard that bluesy, gritty, desert rock vibe.
I think the last thing I really just want to mention is Damien. I think that's how you say it, or Damon.
Damon, yeah.
Damon. The pickup in this song is where it gets awesome. Like it starts slow and then it starts picking up. I'm like, ooh, this is getting good. Especially with the lyrics, bones clawed out of their bodies. Like, yeah, because up until it's like kind of slow, it's melancholic, and then here comes this lyric. I'm like, okay, we're taking a left turn here. That's awesome.
Like that paints an image. I'll tell you that right now. That was the only song I really got like the idea what they're talking about, where they're basically saying like, we are fucking things up for our future generation.
Really?
And yeah, because the children will pay for our crimes and everything.
Yeah.
So I like that song a lot, but I feel like I like the softer songs more, surprisingly, because it's just her voice sounds so beautiful, and him singing the way he does, it's really like shocked me. And I like the fact that every song doesn't have to have Chelsea on it. Like some song that's just him singing, a song here is just her singing. An example of that is Failure Forever, or the song Crimson Stones is where it gets to like it's slower, and I like that as well. Only thing I was not cool about was like the last song. I think the final track, Blood Dawn. It doesn't really add much to the experience of the album. It's a pretty tune, but it sounds like it could have been an outro on an Evanescence album.
I could see that.
But other than that, everything was firing all cylinders for me.
I do have a quick question. Do you think that like because of the sound, and you're saying like it's kind of Converge but kind of not, do you think this would have worked as just like a standalone collab album instead of having it under the Converge title?
I think that would have been better if they did that. I feel like if they called this like the same thing where they were touring it as like just the Blood Moon album, but maybe perhaps people don't know what that means, so they have to market it as Converge. For Converge fans, they got to market it as Chelsea Wolfe for her fans.
So it's more of like a marketing thing as a result. Okay.
Yeah, I feel it that way. Because at the end of the day, it's like it's not very Convergey. The one song I mentioned, Tongues Playing Dead, sounds like more like Converge, but it's more like, rocky than it is like Apollo Creed. So let's go with Tyler first on his final thoughts.
All right. With no prior experience for either of these people, going into this blind, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to what each band could be. It's like taking two different kinds of food and you think, they're never going to work well together. And then you finally taste it and it's like, Oh, okay, I get it. It's pretty tasty. I feel like it's that with this album. And it was solid. Like you said, I can bop to this. I can jam with this. I don't know what the young people are saying anymore.
It's like peanut butter and mayonnaise. It goes hand in hand.
Or peanut butter on hot dogs. Freaking millennials. Anyway, either way, I had a very fun time listening to this album. I'm giving it a buy this because it was different. It was in the same wheelhouse, but not at the same time. So I'm like, okay.
I do like when you get great artists that complement each other while they're collaborating. And I really dig like the intensity of the density of the album. And I feel like with each listen, I discover a different element of the songs, giving it a new experience each time. So besides the minor complaints, this was like a match made in hell. And I'm looking forward to part 2. So I'm giving this album a high by this. I couldn't go with like the praises. It's not a masterpiece, but it is damn good. You gotta definitely purchase this album.
100%.
What they put together is like pretty remarkable.
Like and subscribe, folks.